When Keanu Reeves appears on Vanessa Cross's talk show, the audience expects another one of his inspiring interviews, but Vanessa isn't interested in inspiration. She wants to provoke challenge and expose the actor's most vulnerable side. Yet as Keanu takes his seat, something feels off. Vanessa holds her cue cards with a sharp smile. What was supposed to be a calm conversation could turn into something much bigger. But what Vanessa doesn't know is that in just a few minutes, she would be the one left speechless. What Key would say that night would change everything, and no one in the audience would ever forget it. Before we continue this story, let us know where you're watching from, and if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another special story for you. The studio is packed. The bright stage lights shine intensely, illuminating the set at the center of the vast auditorium. The audience murmurs in anticipation, holding up colorful signs with messages of admiration and gratitude. Among them, some stand out. Keanu, you are our hero and thank you for being you. The movement of cameras and producers behind the scenes signals that the long-awaited moment is about to happen. A silent countdown flashes on the monitors scattered across the set. The glow of the spotlights dances against the backdrop curtain, creating a cinematic aura for the unfolding scene. Then he appears. Keanu Reeves walks across the stage with calm, measured steps. His presence carries a unique magnetism, a simplicity that sets him apart from the typical Hollywood stars. He wears a plain black shirt, a modest blazer, and well-worn jeans reflecting his unpretentious personality. His dark hair falls slightly over his shoulders, and a soft smile lingers on his lips. The audience erupts in applause. Some call out his name, while others simply watch in admiration. There is something about him that soothes, yet deeply moves those around him. Keanu raises a hand in a modest gesture of thanks before settling into the central chair on the stage, adjusting himself with ease. The atmosphere hums with a mix of excitement and reverence on the other side of the table. Sitting with rigid posture is Vanessa Cross. She is a renowned journalist, famous for her sharp interviews and biting tone. Her show is known for exposing vulnerabilities, extracting uncomfortable truths, and occasionally dismantling reputations. Dressed in a fitted blazer with her hair perfectly tied back, Vanessa holds a stack of question cards with a firm grip. Her gaze is analytical, almost predatory. Her lips curve into a half smile, a blend of professionalism and challenge. She studies Keanu for a few seconds before leaning slightly forward. Her voice is firm and controlled as she fires the first question. Keanu, you have fame, fortune, you could live like a king. Yet instead, you take the subway, donate millions, and seem to avoid any kind of luxury. Does that really make a difference in the world? Silence lingers in the studio for a moment. The audience murmurs some frown, uncomfortable with the provocative tone of the question. Others wait anxiously for Keanu's response. He, however, remains unfazed, maintaining his relaxed posture. He reflects for a brief moment. Then he lifts his eyes to Vanessa and offers a soft smile. Vanessa, have you ever thought about how many people feel invisible every day? A weight seems to settle over the studio. The audience grows quiet. Some expressions shift, touched by the simplicity and depth of his response. Vanessa raises an eyebrow, slightly surprised at how Keanu effortlessly deflected her provocation without losing his composure, but she is not satisfied yet. She flips to the next card, holding it between her fingers, her eyes gleaming with an almost ruthless intent. Her trump card is still to come, leaning in slightly more. She is ready to ask the question that in her mind will finally make Keanu lose his balance. But Vanessa is not done. She has a much crueler question prepared, one that will touch on the deepest wounds of Keanu's life. The studio, once filled with energy and excitement, is now immersed in tense silence. Keanu's last response left an unexpected impact. Some members of the audience glance at each other, while others clasp their hands in their laps, reflecting on the words they just heard. But Vanessa Cross is not satisfied. She crosses her legs, adjusting her posture with calculated elegance. A slight smile forms at the corners of her lips, but her eyes hold a merciless glint. She casually tosses the next question card onto the table, letting the suspense linger in the air. Then, without hesitation, she fires, "Keanu, you lost your fiancé, your baby, your best friend. Didn't that destroy you? Don't you feel that in the end everything is just pain?" The impact of the question is immediate. The audience holds its breath. Some cover their mouths, shocked by the brutal nature of the question. Others frown, visibly uncomfortable with the blunt and insensitive way Vanessa approached the subject. Keanu lowers his head slightly, his fingers interlace over his knees, and for a moment silence stretches across the entire studio. The cameras zoom in on his face. His eyes, which usually hold a serene glow, now reflect something deeper. An ocean of memories of losses of pain that cannot be put into words. Vanessa watches closely, waiting for a hesitation, a flicker of vulnerability she can exploit. But then Keanu lifts his gaze. He takes a deep breath and in a calm voice responds, "Pain never destroyed me. It taught me. It taught me that nothing is permanent, that every moment matters, and that true love never disappears." The studio remains utterly silent. The eyes of some audience members begin to glisten with unshed tears. A woman in the front row pulls out a tissue and discreetly dabs at her eyes. Even those unfamiliar with his personal story can feel the weight and truth in his words. The camera shifts to Vanessa for the first time. She looks slightly unsettled. The sharp smile fades for a brief moment, replaced by an expression that blends surprise and perhaps a flicker of regret. But Vanessa Cross is not one to back down. She straightens her shoulders, masking any hesitation, and slides her fingers over the question. Cards, her next move is already set, and this time she aims to strike Keanu where he least expects it. But Vanessa won't give up. She still has one final trick up her sleeve, a question designed to expose Keanu's weakness and make him seem irrelevant to Hollywood. The studio still feels the weight of what just happened. The audience is quieter, some still absorbing Keanu's words, but Vanessa Cross has no intention of slowing down. She straightens her shoulders, regains her composed smile, and slowly flips through the question cards in her hand as if carefully selecting her next move, but she already knows exactly what she's going to ask. She leans forward slightly, narrowing her eyes like a predator, ready to strike. Her tone is different now, less aggressive, more calculated, like a carefully laid trap. "Keanu, you're over 50 now. Hollywood doesn't care about actors your age anymore. Don't you fear becoming irrelevant?" The audience reacts instantly. Some whisper in shock, others frown, uncomfortable with the bluntness of the question. Keanu, however, doesn't respond immediately. He gently rubs his fingers together, thoughtful. His gaze drifts for a brief moment, as if traveling somewhere distant to a place only he knows. Vanessa notices the pause and smiles inwardly. This was the moment she had been waiting for. Then Keanu lifts his eyes and looks directly at her. His face is calm, but his expression carries a weight. No one expected Vanessa. "Have you ever seen a sunset?" The journalist blinks, caught off guard. The audience also seems puzzled by the unexpected response. Keanu continues, his voice soft but filled with meaning. "A sunset is beautiful, but have you ever heard anyone call it irrelevant just because the night is coming?" The studio erupts into applause. Shouts of support echo through the audience. "Yes, "Bravo, Keanu, you're amazing." Vanessa is frozen for a moment. She loses complete control of the interview. Her expression shifts, the rehearsed smile fades, replaced by something unreadable, surprise, and perhaps even a flicker of respect. Keanu didn't attack her. He didn't retaliate with aggression. He simply turned the question against her, offering a response so beautiful and undeniable that for a moment the entire structure of the interview seems to collapse. Vanessa takes a deep breath, trying to regain control. She glances at the cards in her hand and realizes she needs a different approach. Her plan to unsettle Keanu isn't working as she expected, but there is still a way. If he doesn't fear irreal, maybe she can touch on something even deeper. Her next move will target his childhood. Vanessa, feeling the control slipping from her hands, decides to attack Keanu's past. Trying to expose his vulnerability, the studio is still buzzing from Keanu's last response. The audience, which had been divided between applause and murmurs, now looks at him with a newfound layer of respect. He hasn't just answered the questions with calmness, he has turned each provocation into a powerful reflection. But Vanessa Cross isn't finished. She can feel control of the interview slipping through her fingers, and it frustrates her. Her show isn't known for inspiring moments, it's known for putting celebrities on the spot. She needs to regain her grip on the conversation, so she decides to go deeper. She picks up the next question card, holding it for a few seconds, as if weighing her words, but deep down she already knows exactly what she wants to say. Leaning forward slightly, her voice is firm, but there's a cold edge to it. "Keanu, you grew up without a father. Your mother worked hard to support you. Have you never felt angry about that?" The impact of the question is immediate. The audience shifts uncomfortably, some frown, realizing that Vanessa is trying to poke at an old wound. Keanu, however, doesn't react with surprise. He expected this attack. He takes a deep breath, and instead of looking at Vanessa, he gazes off into the distance, as if revisiting memories from a long ago past. After a moment of silence, he offers a small, thoughtful smile. "My father taught me something valuable." Vanessa blinks, slightly confused. This wasn't the response she was expecting. Keanu then looks back at her and continues, "He showed me the kind of man I didn't want to become. My mother taught me how to survive." Silence grips the studio. A woman in the audience lets out a quiet sob, unable to hold back her emotions. A few people exchange L&S, touched by the simplicity and depth of Keanu's words. For the first time, Vanessa hesitates. This interview was supposed to be a power play with her controlling the rhythm, but Keanu refuses to play by her rules. He doesn't react with anger, nor does he defend himself. Instead, he turns every harsh question into a life lesson. For a brief moment, Vanessa doesn't know what to say. She flips through the cards once more, her fingers slowly gliding over the paper. It's becoming clear that her previous strategies aren't working. But there is still one final move. She lifts her eyes to Keanu, and this time her expression no longer holds the sarcasm it once did. Now there's something different, something darker. If touching on his past wasn't enough, there might be only one thing that can truly shake him: the fear of his own mortality. But she still has one last card to play, a question that will force him to confront his deepest fear. The air in the studio is electric, charged with an unspoken energy that no one can quite describe. The audience is no longer just watching an interview. They are witnessing something else, something deeper. Keanu Reeves has faced every question with an almost meditative calm, turning even the sharpest inquiries into reflections that leave the crowd in silent awe. But Vanessa Cross is not finished. Her mind races every calculated dig, every verbal trap. None of them had fazed him. She adjusts her blazer, slowly pulling back her shoulders. A journalist known for breaking even the most composed guests she has built her career on, digging deeper, pushing boundaries and exposing vulnerabilities. And right now, sitting across from Keanu, she feels something unfamiliar creeping in frustration. Not because he refuses to play her game, but because he keeps changing it altogether. Her previous tactics had aimed to expose him, to strip away the mystique surrounding his kindness, his humility. But instead, he had left her with more questions than answers. This is her last chance. She needs to take control this time. There's no smirk, no performative charm. She leans forward just slightly. The movement is calculated, deliberate. Her voice, when it comes, is quieter than before, but there's something else woven into it, something colder. Keanu, don't you feel fear? The words hang between them, suspended in the still air. Time waits for no one. Have you ever thought about what will happen when your time comes? A collective hush falls over the studio. This is different. This is no longer about Hollywood success or public perception. This isn't about box office numbers, acting careers, or relevancy. This is about something no one can escape. Keanu tilts his head slightly. He does not answer right away. He doesn't laugh it off. He doesn't deflect. Instead, he breathes in deeply, his expression unreadable for the first time in the interview. The silence stretches. Vanessa holds her breath. The audience leans forward. Then finally, he speaks. Vanessa, do you know the difference between fear and faith? Vanessa blinks for the first time. She's caught off guard. Vanessa presses her lips together. She had expected resistance. She had expected defensiveness. She had even expected vague media-trained responses. She had not expected this. For the first time since the interview began, she does not have a quick rebuttal. Her gaze lowers to the question cards in her hands. She flips through them, looking for something, anything that might help her regain control. But suddenly the words on the cards feel empty. Everything she had meticulously planned for the angles, the traps, the psychological warfare of journalism. None of it seemed relevant anymore, because this isn't a battle. Keanu has taken her carefully constructed chessboard and turned it into something else entirely, something bigger, something she wasn't prepared for. She thought she was conducting an interview. Instead, Keanu had turned it into a conversation about life itself. And then as she stares at her notes, she realizes something. There is one last question. She needs to ask something deeper, something final. She lifts her gaze, and when she speaks again, her voice is barely above a whisper. And what if no one remembers you when you're gone? The weight of the question hits the air like a stone sinking into deep water. The audience barely breathes for the first time in the entire segment. Keanu Reeves does not immediately answer. The air in the studio feels heavier now. Vanessa's last question, delivered almost as a whisper, lingers in the silence. And what if no one remembers you when you're gone? It is the kind of question designed to unravel a person, to expose a hidden fear, to force them to face their own insignificance. But Keanu does not flinch. Instead, he smiles softly. It's not a smirk, nor is it the rehearsed smile of a Hollywood star. It's something else, something deeper. He takes a breath, and when he speaks, his voice is as steady as ever. The question isn't what they will remember about me. He pauses for just a second, letting the words settle. The question is, what will they remember about you? A visible shift ripples through the audience. Some people gasp softly. Others sit back stunned by the unexpected turn. A few exchange glances as if realizing that for the first time, Vanessa is the one on the receiving end of the question. The camera zooms in on her face. Vanessa crossed the woman who had built a career, tearing down public figures, suddenly looks lost. Her lips part slightly, but she doesn't speak. Her fingers tighten around the key cards in her lap. Yet she doesn't glance down at them because For the first time in this interview, perhaps for the first time in a long time, she has no prepared answer. The silence stretches and then something no one expects happens. A single tear slips down Vanessa's cheek. She doesn't wipe it away. The camera catches it the way her throat moves as she swallows, the way her breathing shifts, as if something heavy has just settled inside her. Keanu watches her, not with triumph, not with smugness, but with quiet understanding. He stands. The studio is quieter now. The applause has faded. The excitement of the audience replaced by something more contemplative. People sit still, some wiping away lingering tears, others lost in thought. Vanessa Cross remains in her chair, unmoving. The two cards, once her weapon, her shield, lie abandoned on the table before her. She no longer needs them. Or perhaps for the first time she realizes she never really did. The cameras are still rolling, the world is still watching, but Vanessa is not thinking about the audience, the ratings or the headlines that will follow this interview. She is thinking about herself. The words echo in her mind. The question isn't what they will remember about me, the question is what will they remember about you? Her own reflection stares back at her from the glossy surface of the table. For years, she has built her career on sharp words, relentless questions, and an unwavering belief that exposing others made her powerful. The screen fades to black, and then a final message appears. Life is not about how long we live, but about the impact we leave behind. Soft music plays in the background, gentle and reflective. The video comes to an end. If this story touched you, like, comment and share.